I believe that each one of them walked out of that room yesterday doing a personal analysis of what does this mean for me? And I know for a fact that there's talk inside the military ranks of what is the best way to disobey an unlawful order. How do you do that? And especially now, given the recent Supreme Court ruling, which holds the president immune from criminal acts, but the people he's ordering to do these things are subject to those criminal violations. So how do you say no, especially if the staff judge advocate, the lawyer chain of command has been disrupted, that the military chain of command from civilian to military leaders has been co-opted? It was obvious to me in Secretary Hegseth's speech that he also is all for doing whatever the president orders him to do. And that breaks the boundaries of what two previous Secretary of Defenses, both Mattis and Esper in the first term, when they were ordered to do illegal things, they spoke for the force and said, we don't do that.
The Daily Beast podcast had that interview there with retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. I don't think we should underestimate the severity of what it is that he's talking about. Do you guys remember last week, of course, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump went and spoke to military leaders, brought them all in from all over the world to come in one particular place and let Pete Hegseth's dumbass talk to them and lecture them about what a true warrior ethos is, because he's a Fox and Friends weekend warrior who then was given this job because of his extreme stupidity and utter loyalty to that fascist in the White House. There was reports from many folks who saw the way that many of those generals and leaders were sitting there, mostly in silence. But apparently, according to Mark Hertling, it wasn't a very good sign as far as what is that Trump and Hegseth want.
The military, with this internal dissension that you can seemingly feel when you witness an event like yesterday.
When you look at those faces, it's what I predicted when I was on the show the other day, and that you're going to get poker faces and a stoicism that was reflective of professionalism. But truthfully, those individuals will leave that room or left that room yesterday, and they'll start discussing and analyzing how they can implement some of the lawful orders that they got. Okay, great. We can buck up the standards. We can take a look at the kinds of things to get some soldiers, not all, certainly not even the majority, back in better shape. Take a look at what our ranks look like. But there were also soldiers and all ranks of services in that audience that said, wait a minute, when they were writing down the same kind of checklist that I was writing down, saying, wait a minute, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that, or this is a true violation of what we are as professionals, or hey, I've got women in my ranks who are performing admirably. Why should I kind of lump them all together like the secretary did? Or I'm certainly now going to debate with myself, what am I going to say if I'm asked to go on the street and conduct illegal actions? And I guarantee you that the people in that audience will not execute illegal orders. We've been saying that for a long time. And it was an attempt at separating the military institution from the people that they defend.
He said it pretty clearly, but I don't think we should overlook it. It was an attempt to separate the military leadership from the people that they defend. It's exactly what it is that we've been talking about. It's how Donald Trump said he's going to sick the military, thinks it's his on his political opponents. And his political opponents could be American citizens that stand in the street and protest. Standing in the street and protesting is what it is that he wanted to stop during his first term when he walked out there in D.C. with the Bible upside down, and there was protesters out there, and he wanted them to be shot in the legs. And Mark Esper, as Hertling also mentioned, was one of these defense secretaries that had to push back on this guy's objectives. Now he's got Pete Hegseth. Think about the difference in those folks. I want to highlight this other retired, what's his ranking? Malcolm Ritchie is his name. He posted this himself. Retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Army.
Malcolm S. Ritchie, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, U.S. Army Reserve, 3 combat tours in Iraq, 32 years of service in the United States Army, Army Reserve, and Army National Guard. I am here to express my outrage at the meeting in Quantico, Virginia, between Hegseth, Trump, and all of the senior officers in the United States military and the senior NCO Corps. Those generals, admirals, and senior NCOs sat there in stone-faced silence, listening to the most outrageous speeches ever made in United States military history by the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. Secretary of Defense on his ridiculous rant trying to take to school generals, admirals, senior NCOs with 10 times the leadership ability, the education, and the experience that the failed Major Hegseth could ever begin to understand. And then they have to listen to the cognitively declined President of the United States, who I would now name as Dictator of the United States, tell this audience that they will be expected to wage war against the American people. That's exactly what Trump said. So don't get on here and try to tell me that he didn't say it. Training grounds in American cities. What does that mean? They're going to go in locked and loaded into American cities, American neighborhoods, and use American citizens as pop-up targets on a live fire training range? This is absolutely astounding abuse of power, which makes, by my estimation, Donald Trump a domestic enemy of the Constitution. Because my oath is to the Constitution, and don't you think for 1 minute, Mr. Trump, that there aren't millions of other veterans and retirees that feel exactly the same way.
The violence is here. The guns are in our faces. I just hope enough people understand we're at the point now, because they're willing to shoot people, which I'm going to get to in this next story after this, that the violence is here even as they claim victimhood. The way that they always talk about they're violent terrorists, they understand they're the violent terrorists. That's how they're talking. That's how they're being. And they don't expect anyone to do anything else except for stand there with signs now and say, hopefully you guys will rethink your long-standing plan to take over this country with your fascism. In case you guys didn't see it, this is that aspect of that speech where Donald Trump was talking about using American cities as training grounds.
Very important mission. And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. Because we're going into Chicago very soon. That's a big city with an incompetent governor, stupid governor, stupid. They threw him out of his family business. He was so stupid. I know the family. He becomes governor. He's got money. Not money that he made, but he ran for governor, he won, and now he criticizes us all the time. And
don't let the irony get lost on you. I'm talking about J.B. Pritzker being a rich guy who was given money by his family and didn't make it himself. Calm down with that. Everything is upside on its head. This guy's never done anything except for destroy businesses, take money, use it, waste it, and then claim that he's a genius. We know how this guy operates. But this is that speech in front of military leaders where he is airing his political grievances with somebody who criticizes him. That was the beef. He goes around just criticizing us. That is the issue. So therefore, he's going to tell his military leaders to then go into that state and specifically in the city of Chicago to go and execute his political retribution for people who criticize his thin-skinned ass. He went and spoke in front of the Navy as well, too.
But we have to take care of this little gnat that's on our shoulder called the Democrats. They want to give all of our money to illegal aliens that pour into the country. And, you know, I have a bigger heart than they do. But the problem is when you do that, they come in by the millions. Everybody wants that, so you can't do it.
We are going to take care of this little gnat on our shoulders called the Democrats. Who's we? As he keeps going and speaking in front of military crowds, military leaders, and I guess General Navy midshipmen. I don't know who it is that he's speaking in front of there, but he had another speech where he's talking again to the military to talk about the violence he wants to inflict on his political enemies. This is direct. So I gave you guys maybe a little bit of like optimism towards the way things might go. So let me just finish this whole block off with one ex-Homeland Security Chief of Staff, Miles Taylor. I think at this point, Trump considers him a traitor for not continuing to be loyal through his authoritarianism. So Miles Taylor had a thought about what is it these military leaders might do.
Do you think the military are going to say, no, Mr. President?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people out there, look, I deeply respect men and women in uniform. I worked in the Pentagon during the first Bush administration. I have a lot of friends that serve in the United States military. I would like to tell you, no, they are going to push back. They are going to fight against this illegal conduct in the Trump administration. I do not personally believe that's what's going to happen, at least at first. I think you are going to see a lot of the senior ranks of the military rollover, and we may not know about it because these are not folks who are used to vocally and publicly standing up to the president of the United States. It's just not in their DNA. I cannot tell you how hard it was to get even the very vocal generals in senior positions who worked in the first Trump administration to get their asses out there in 2020 and say what they were saying to people like me in private publicly. And my point to them was, I get it. You've spent a career, you got 4 stars on your shoulder. I'm just some punk kid. But you're telling me in private you think this man is a danger to the fabric of our republic? That's not something for dinner conversations. You need to go tell that to the voters who will decide whether to fire or rehire this man. Finally, those people did. But I'm telling you, it is not bred into members of the military to go out there and dissent from the president. So I think he's going to be quite successful in bringing the military to heel. And a quick example of that is what Donald Trump has already done off the coast of Venezuela in blowing up drug boats. This is completely not authorized by the Congress. His missile strikes against drug dealers, while it may make us feel good, no one wants to have sympathy for the drug dealer. They are not lawful. And he's doing that with members of the military in full compliance.
And he wraps up his point by talking about what it is that we've already done with military might, doing already illegal activities and blowing up those boats, which he took their word for it that these are drug boats. When some of those reports from those countries where those boats were from, some of those folks were fishermen. Other folks, they didn't confront them at all. They just blew it up. So who's to know whatever confirmation that they say they have? So take that any way that you want to, and I guess prepare for what it is that we may see.